Good morning. Thank you for joining me for today's edition of Status Here. So glad to be here again. It's been a while since I've seen everybody. Let's go ahead and get started on the back today. Bending the knees, lying down on the floor, taking a couple of deep breaths to just get acclimated to the body again. Take a look at the knees. Make sure the knees are roughly hip width apart. That means if you take a look at your outside thighs, outside lines should be roughly parallel. And let's just start with some breaths. Inhale into the belly, exhale, allowing the belly to fall. So always starting with this diaphragmatic breathing because it's a very direct way to connect mind and body. If we think about the breath, if we focus on the breath, we can be conscious of it in the mind. And at the same time, there are bodily sensations. See if you can't pick up on some of those bodily sensations. You might feel your lower back pressing into the floor a little bit more on the inhalation. You might feel the backs of your shoulders falling toward the floor on the inhalation. Feel the backs of your arms, the bottoms of your feet. And then add a little bit of effort on your exhalation so that when you fill, the filling is kind of passive. The filling expands the belly, expands the chest. The filling happens because there's a vacuum inside your body. If we put a little effort into the exhalation, we're pulling the body down toward the floor, almost thinking about flattening as much of the body onto the floor as we can, as much of the core from the hips up to the shoulders, even up to the crown of the head. So the back of the head and the back of the neck as well. So when we inhale, it's kind of passive. Not kind of, it is passive. And when we exhale, we can make it active. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do now. Make it active so that you begin to notice that you can affect something that happens naturally. To some extent, you can make this breath what you want it to be. And that is where all the riches lie. So inhale, relax, let things happen. When you exhale, see what it feels like to maybe exhale a little more firmly, to pull the stomach and the chest away from the ceiling. Inhale again and relax. Exhale a little more firmly. And here's where we start playing with this a little bit. As you exhale a little more firmly, pull the navel toward the spine. And feel that effort moving through the core. As you exhale a little more firmly, pull the chest toward the spine. Pull the ribs together. And each time we get a break, each time we inhale, we get a break. And as we exhale, we make another effort and see what happens, see how it feels. I begin to feel this very systematically, moving from the top to the bottom. When I inhale, it always starts at the base, the pelvic floor, it fills up toward the head. When I exhale, I can feel my chest and my ribs and my belly. And for me, that's a good way to, those are good checkpoints. And as I continue to breathe, the lower stomach is getting a little more active. In the beginning, I was just filling my belly. Now I'm feeling myself fill in between my hips as well. So the very lowest portion of my stomach is engaging as well. And when I inhale, the lowest portion engages. The belly fills, the ribs separate, the chest rises. Even my chin lifts a little bit. As I exhale, I can tuck my chin and feel that stretch at the back of my neck. I can flatten my chest, and that widens my shoulders. And my ribs come together, and the stomach pulls toward the spine. And the base of the belly, the pelvic floor, pulls down toward the feet. So it's almost like an inhalation, which opens and widens and lifts, and an exhalation, which contracts and flattens and grounds. I like to think of a bird who's got a lot of courage. A baby bird takes off out of the nest, fills and flies and rises, and okay, that's enough. I got to come back home. Okay, that's enough. And I can come back home. I can always come back home. And that's the exhalation. Always coming back to what we know, coming back to safety. And having the option to make it what we need it to be. If I'm a little more anxious, if I'm a little more energetic today, I can exhale a little more firmly and flatten a little bit more to the floor and firmly ground. And again, noticing and taking some security from the fact that the ground is there. I'm right here. It won't fall out from under me. And then I can venture forth again on the next inhalation and come back on the exhalation. And if we continue to play with this, we can add the feet. I like to change the position of the feet from time to time. See what happens if you walk your feet away from your body as far as you can so that the bottoms of your feet are pressing into the floor. So my legs are, I've walked my feet away from my legs as far as I can while still keeping the bottoms of the shoes on the floor. So I can inhale, relax everything, exhale, flatten down to the ground, all the way down into my feet. My feet can press into the floor as well. So inhale, fill, relax, rise, expand. Exhale, come back to what I know. The back of my head, I can ground my shoulders and my ribs, belly, pelvic floor, feet. And then inhale again. Letting it go. Exhale. Now, if I want to, I could exhale so firmly and push into my feet so firmly that I could lift my pelvis away from the floor. And if that feels like something that is appropriate for you, try that. Inhale, relax, expand. Exhale, flatten the chest, flatten the belly, pull the ribs together, push into the feet. And it feels like it's getting really hard, and that's okay, because next time I inhale, I'm just going to relax again. And I exhale and lift. And what kind of resources do I have? What can I marshal to help me with this, to give me some support with this? If I ground the backs of my arms and press the backs of my arms toward the floor, and then tuck my tailbone toward the backs of my calves, all of that helps me stabilize as I exhale, so that I can change where I'm grounding. I don't necessarily need the ground to ground. I can inhale and expand and relax. And as I exhale, I'm going to ground mobily. The grounding takes place in my back. The grounding takes place in the bottoms of my feet, in the backs of my arms, in my shoulders, and the back of my neck and my head. And when I inhale again, I just relax. And then I exhale. Again, grounding away from the ground as far as my core is concerned. One last time here. We'll inhale and relax. Exhale, ground, but lift the pelvis. Now, when we're grounding here, it's really important that you're tucking your pelvis toward the backs of your knees. That's going to force you to stretch through the fronts of the legs. It's going to force you to contract through the gluteal muscles. And remember, we're grounding. We need to make our own ground here. We don't have the floor for the core. So that firm contraction of the gluteal muscles, pulling the navel and tucking the pelvis under, gives us a firm lower back. We want to make everything in the back as firm as possible so we can ground, so we can come back to what we know. And as you inhale again, let's drop down and just let everything relax. So feel the backs of your legs. You may feel your inner thighs right now. They may be a little bit tired. You may be feeling your hips. Let's bend the knees again and cross the right ankle over the left knee. And from here, just press the right knee away from the body. Push the right knee away from the body. And feel how that hits the outside of your hip. And what happens if you push back with your knee? Push away with my hand, and I push back on my hand with my knee. Do you feel that through the joints between your pelvis and your leg? Notice if you flex your foot, that may allow you to push with your knee against your hand a little more firmly. And that's because that forces you to engage the inner thigh. So we can recruit a lot of these muscles and use them not only for support and stability in exercise, but throughout the whole day. If we're aware of them, we have a lot more resources than we usually take advantage of. So push away with your hand, resist, push back with your knee, flex your foot. And now, I've talked to you a lot about tucking your tailbone behind your knees. I'm going to suggest now that you gently arch your back, just a little bit, just a little bit. But when you do that, you're going to feel that right butt cheek ground into the floor a little bit more. It's going to push down into the floor a little bit more. And you're probably going to begin to engage the back of your leg, the outer thigh. So now see if you can go around your thigh, inner thigh. Can you feel engagement there? If you can't, flex your foot a little more firmly. Outside of the back of the thigh, press into that glute, gentle arch with the back. How about the outside of the front of the thigh? Push a little harder with your knee into your hand. And now engage the entire circumference of your right thigh. And when you inhale, you can relax a little bit. When you exhale, again, engage. And you really need to be mindful. If we don't think about what we're doing, we forget. Or we think that we don't have these resources. They're there. You just need to figure out where they are and how to engage them. And once you do that, you've got so much more power for exercises like this, but for your life. You can walk more easily. Your back won't bother you so much during the day. You can squat down and stand up more easily. All of these things we lose because we start ignoring, we stop paying attention. So notice how you can engage. Notice how much you can incorporate in the circumference of that thigh. And as you exhale now, we'll just gently release. Let's uncross the legs, put the right foot on the floor, cross the left ankle over the right knee. This is Enzo. And as you inhale, push the knee away with your left hand. So filling the belly, exhale, pull the navel toward the spine, push away with that hand. And then begin to engage the thigh by resisting, by pushing back with the knee. Push away with the hand, push back with the knee. Play with it. Play with this. Flex your foot. Actively flex your foot. Push out through the sole of your foot. Notice how that helps you engage your inner thigh. Now what about a gentle arch in the back? Almost kind of sinking your left butt cheek down toward the floor. That will probably help you to feel this in the back of the thigh a little bit more. And so now see if you can move your attention around the entire circumference of your thigh, starting with the inner thigh and the inside of the back of the thigh and the outside of the back of the thigh and the outside of the front of the thigh. And then try this. Can you feel, and you bring your awareness to the circumference of both thighs. Feel the front, the outside of the front of both thighs. And you may need to do something with your right leg to help you engage that right leg as well. Feel the outside of the back of both thighs and the inside of the back of both thighs and the inside of the front of both thighs. As you inhale, imagine the backs of the thighs are widening. And as you exhale, your attention circles around in between your legs and brings the insides, the midline of your thighs together. So as I inhale, I'm thinking about widening, taking the outside of my thighs away from each other. And as I as I exhale, I'm moving the inner thighs together. Inhale, widen. Exhale, bring them together. Inhale, widen. Exhale, bring them together. And does that remind you of anything? Sort of reminds you of the breathing itself, right? We widen the belly. As we exhale, we're pulling everything together to ground it. And that's exactly what we're doing here with both legs. We're inhaling, widening. As we exhale, bringing things together, coming back to the home base. We're running out of time here. Try one more variation on this. See if you can move your attention a little closer to your knees. And do the same thing. Inhale. The outside backs of your knees are widening. And as you exhale, bring them together. I suspect you're probably beginning to feel this in your lower leg and foot. Most of us tend to evert the feet. The feet turn out to the sides. The inner thighs and the big toe get very, very weak. That's why we start to walk with our feet turned out, because we sit a lot. And when we sit, you just let the legs fall apart. But you're probably feeling this now in your lower legs. And we could go on and on with this. We're not going to because we're out of time here. But it's the same idea. Inhaling, filling, widening, spreading the wings, experimenting, exhaling, always coming back. Always can come back to the earth, to a foundation, to safety, to the nest, to the heart, whatever it is, whatever it can be for you. And it doesn't have to be more of one than the other. As much as we want to reach out, we can reach in. As much as we want to take risks or move a little bit further away from what we're comfortable with, we can always come back. The system won't allow us to get too far. We always come back to the exhalation. Go ahead and extend the legs now. And just come into Shavasana, or corpse pose. Remember that a corpse has no muscular contractions at all. So it lies very, very heavy on the floor. Turn your attention to your lower legs. Whatever part of your lower leg is in contact with the floor right now, And just make it heavy. There's some portion of your lower leg in contact with the floor. Imagine that each time you exhale, a little more of that space relaxes so that more of your lower leg is resting on the floor. You may begin to feel your ankles on the floor, where perhaps you didn't feel that before. The outsides of your feet resting on the floor. Feel the thighs resting on the floor. Turn your attention to the entire length of both legs. Each time you exhale, add another pound to the weight of your legs. Inhale. Exhale, make your body a little heavier. Inhale, and the legs become heavier. Each time you exhale, and the heavier we make the body, the more we ground the body, the more the inhalation corresponds. We don't go as far. We go as far away. We stay near. The breath slows. That diaphragmatic breath becomes a little more appropriate. You probably don't have to think about it like you did in the beginning. And you'll probably find that even though you've simply been focusing on your legs, your upper body has gotten in down the act as well. Arms are resting a little more heavily on the floor. Shoulders, lower back, resting more heavily on the floor. When the mind can settle like this, for me, It very, very much feels like home. This is safe. It's nourishing. Really, it feels like a healthy meal. Many of us tend to have addictive tendencies. We eat too much sugar, we drink too much wine, or we, consume out of fear, out of anxiety. It's not easy to get to this point, especially if you don't have someone helping you, someone supporting you. But it does get easier with practice. I've never come to a point where I could live from here. I think it's possible. I think people do it. I have never been able to do it. I don't even know what it would be like. But for me, this carries into my day. These few moments of silent stillness. There's a lot of momentum that I gather from it that helps to motivate me through the day. Take one last moment to just imagine you can make a memory of what this feels like. And see if you can recall it once or twice during the day today. Give yourself just a few seconds. Maybe set an alarm twice on your watch. Recalling it also helps you to come back to it when you need it. And while we talk about mindfulness practice, and a lot of programs they encourage you to practice, 15, 10 minutes, just come back to it for a few seconds. The act of coming back is a mindfulness. Go ahead and take some nice deep breaths to bring yourself back. Stretching side to side, whatever feels good for you. Rotating the head. Roll to one side whenever you're ready. Give yourself a moment. And then come up go back into a sitting position. Thanks very much for joining me today. I hope this was useful for you, and I hope that you can join me again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.